Well, hello, hello, hello. We are going to do a little video on the Euphrates River and the Tigris River because this is one of the most looked up and searched things on Google right now. I think a lot of people are starting to have their eyes open to seeing things that are happening in the world. Now, July 30th of this year, we did a little 45-second video, which I will share the clip at the end of this. That will share some of the articles of something I'm going to show that you can pause and read it for yourself. But before we go any further, I'm going to potentially do a study on the Garden of Eden. Not right now, but I'm just going to give a little of a background. The Garden of Eden or the Garden of God, um, Elohim. And we see this biblical paradise in Genesis chapter 2 and chapter 3, Ezekiel 28 and Ezekiel 31. We know that the Tigris and Euphrates River are two of these four rivers that run through it. The other two rivers are no longer amongst us anymore. Um, but we see things like the Genesis flood narrative, the Genesis creation narrative, the Tower of Babel. There's even been stories of Eden that has went through Mesopotamian myth things. So, we know that God put a divine guard to guard the divine garden, the tree of life. Now, mentions of Eden are also made in the Bible elsewhere, in Genesis, Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 35, Ezekiel 51, verse 3, Joel chapter 2, verse 3, Zechariah 14, Ezekiel 47. They give you kind of an imagery of this without naming Eden itself. But now we are going to share a couple things up on the screen here real quick because there is a lot. I want to also add it's not just Euphrates River is drying up. Before we get into Euphrates, let's talk about the Tigris River is drying up a little bit. And before we get into it, let's talk about Euphrates and Tigris River. These are two of the greatest rivers of Western Asia because it was Western Asia back then. But now, as they flow through the Persian Gulf, they're going through what we call the Arab nations now. Now, my friends, we see these two rivers here in Genesis chapter 2, verse 14. The name of the third river is Hiddekel. It is the one that goes toward the east of Assyria. The fourth river is Euphrates. Now, another way to put it as Hiddekel, as we see Tigris. Now, the Euphrates River was known as the Great River also in Genesis. Now, we see a lot of this is an end times prophecy as well. Verse 18, or Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. On the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants, I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. We also see this in Joshua, right before the conquest. In Joshua chapter 1, verse 4, it says, from the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, and all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. Now, we also in Numbers, I do believe, as I'm looking in my notes, we got Numbers chapter 22, verse 5. It says, then he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river, which when it calls it the river, we're talking about the Euphrates, in the land of the sons of his people, to call him, saying, look, a people has come from Egypt. See, they cover the face of the earth, and they are settling next to me. This is the same river we're talking about. Now, as we've seen all this, the Euphrates is mentioned in the book of Revelations, where the angels are bound. And we're about, at the end of this show, some things. There's one video that's circulating through We Will Play. And I just pray for discernment people can alter things and make things happen. Now, what we cannot alter is the fact that it actually is drying up. But sound effects is another thing. In Revelation chapter 9, verse 14, saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. Now, we're talking about these same ones we see in Jude and Peter, who have been bound for all of their wickedness, following, of course, Satan, Lucifer, in his revolt against heaven. Now, in Revelation 16, verse 12, it talks about then the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. It's pretty dried up, my friends. It is pretty dried up now. Just saying. Now, with the Tigris River also drying up, we're seeing that there is conflict, crisis, going on with this cholera. It's a disease and we've been told that there will be an increase in pestilences. On Thursday, we're getting ready to do the four horsemen study. And, we have one of the horsemen that brings sicknesses, pestilence. And we're seeing this as children are playing near open sewages. Now, it doesn't help that the rivers are drying up. I'm not saying this is necessarily linked to it, but it is big to them, because a lot of these smaller countries, they don't have a lot of the plumbing that we have here in America, for instance. Now, here is, before we get into Euphrates, the twilight of the Tigris, Iraq's mighty river drying up. The Tigris River is drying up as well. And it was the river that is said to have watered the biblical Garden of Eden and helped give birth to civilization itself. It's dying along with the Euphrates. It's the twin river of the Euphrates River, and they're both drying up. As you see some of the land here, it said a hellish summer. Now, 50 degrees Celsius. Let me go on my phone because I'm not really familiar with Celsius here, but I'm telling you, it's hot. 50 degrees Celsius is 122 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's really hot. I remember there was what was it? I think it was in 2020 or 2021 that they at one point had reached 71 degrees Celsius and people were having tires melt and stuff. That is 159 degrees Fahrenheit. My dad was stationed in Saudi Arabia a lot, in the Persian Gulf War, and it's not uncommon for it to be in the 120s sometimes, but we're talking a lot, a constant where dams and all the power, the air conditions were shutting off. I mean, look at some of these pictures. Um, this is dried up. Not a drop. Not a drop is what the picture says. Not a drop of water. We're seeing drying up. We're seeing a lot of, well, you see these rivers come through here, the Tigris and Euphrates that come through here, and this is the area that's being hit so hard by this. I mean, this looks like pools of water that would be in streets, like puddles. These almost look like puddles. I mean, you could drive a car through this, how low this is, and you know that this river was way higher than this. Just saying. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure you could see some of the lines. I know the picture doesn't blow up, but you can see some of the lines back there. You know the water had been higher than this before. So the fact that it's gotten this low is pretty crazy. Now we're going to watch a little bit of this. This is from 2020 to 2021. Pretty high. I want you to pay attention to that building over there. This one right here. Now, you can tell this is not fake because look, as they start this video here, you see these bluish bars or metal bars, whatever they are. But then look, the house right there, no water. We're seeing a massive dry up here. I mean, you already got green vegetation. The Euphrates River is drying up, my friends. I mean, that's scary footage. As you can just see, there is literally hardly any water. Now, this is the article I shared back on July 30th, and I'll put re-put the video up to it, and I'll put the links to all this stuff also in the description of this video. But this is the cave system that everyone is talking about. Are we seeing where the four angels were bound? Are we seeing it in these days? Big possibility. We read Revelation 9, uh, verse 14, and we're getting ready to do that study on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. It'll be live of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. What are they? Now, this is the video I'm saying. I'm not saying take a lot to this because people can make fake sounds, but just curious. Now, before I go any further on this, um, there is um, a ministry channel off the curb who has had videos of these similar sound effects being heard throughout city skylines and stuff. Now, I wouldn't say that this, like I say, keep your speculation up on it. And I wouldn't put it across that when demons actually get released, like the book of Revelation says, that there is going to be some really creepy things that happen on this earth. This is something to keep our eyes on, the fact that as much as the Euphrates River has dried up lately, it would take a lot to get it back to the levels it used to be. Um, so remember, everything we're seeing in today's world, God is still in control. He's always in control. Keep looking up, get a prayer life. There is so many biblical signs that are happening. I'm recording this video on the 7th. And I don't know if I'm going to release it on the 7th, but on the 8th, we have a blood moon, a historic blood moon here that's 85 minutes long that is happening on election day. Here, where I live in Indiana, it's at 5 a.m. to around 6 a.m. It's during sunrise, so the sun is not going to be out right off the bat. It's going to be a blood moon. We know that in Joel, the book of Acts, and even the book of Revelation, it talks about the sun being darkened and the moon being turned into blood upon the great and terrible day of the Lord's return. We're seeing famines, we're seeing pestilences, we're seeing rumors of wars and wars, we're seeing nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. I mean, just look at racism as still a thing. We see the only time racism will not be a thing is once we're in heaven, and everyone that goes to heaven is in heaven, and everyone that goes to hell is in hell. Um, but while we're on here on earth, we're going to always be sadly affected by these things because sin is a real thing. Sin is something that is here in this world, and so many churches want to look past it. I don't think that we should be looking past sin anymore, because it's time to get freed. It's time to get freed in Jesus Christ. It's time to stop doing a lot of the things we think are okay. And it's time to really, really gain a relationship with our Father. And prayer is that way. If no one knows how to pray, you don't need man and woman to tell you how to pray. I mean, just talk to him. Even when you read in the Bible, some of the greatest prophets of all time, they sometimes even spoke to God in anger because of things that was happening in their life. I'm not saying speaking to God in anger is the correct thing to do, but I'm saying society has put in a formula with how you're supposed to pray. The Bible gives us that formula. It says, "Do not pray amiss." I mean, if you're praying out of the will of God, I say this all the time. If you're praying for a Ferrari, if you're praying for to win the lottery, if you're praying for your football team to make a field goal kick, these are not things that the Lord is going to listen to prayers on. If he wanted everyone to have Ferraris and have $1 million in the bank and everyone's football team to make a field goal when they won it, then that would happen. But this is not things of the Father. He wants us to pray for wisdom. He wants us to pray for the sick. He wants us to pray for his will to be done. And that's why on Sunday, we've been doing this preaching series about prayer. Prayer is war. We break down strongholds with prayer. So, my friends, my brothers and sisters, I don't know if we have seen, I don't think anyone, even if they're 100 years old, have seen this many signs. We don't know the day and time, but because we don't know the day and time, we know the signs mean the coming is coming. So let's get our house in order and remember that the Lord fights for us. He goes before us in the battle. There is nothing to fear. I mean, even if that sound effect of these angels that are fallen, if even if that was a real sound effect, there's nothing to fear because we know their outcome. We know that they get casted away and sealed away forever. So things are only going to get worse before his coming. I don't even think we've really seen the pinnacle of things yet. And there's going to be a lot of people, he's going to say, "Away with you, workers of iniquity. I do not know you." And I don't want that for anyone. I would love for everyone to have a relationship with Christ, but the actual fact of the matter is that ain't so. There's going to be a lot that don't make it. And the Bible even points that. But if you are seeking God and you're asking for a prayer, just be still and listen. Just know that he forgives you as far as the east is to the west. Just know that he died and rose 3 days later. He took those nails and stripes on his body to heal us from our infirmities and our sins. A death that every one of us deserved on the cross. All I want to say is much love. Keep your heads up. We fight from victory, not from defeat, and it's all thanks to Jesus Christ. Much love, and may God bless you.